I'm Jim Check. You're watching KelownaNow. I'm here with Steve Conway from the Manufacturing Service Alliance of British Columbia. And we're going to talk about the anxiety that comes from all this tariff uncertainty. And there's a lot of uncertainty out there right now. I mean, every day it seems like we're a ping pong ball in this, I would even say trade war kind of thing with the volley back and forth, right? It just seems to be the rhetoric just keeps amping up. And we got that person next door there to us that is, I guess that's his, he loves to cause anxiety, it seems like, and he just kind of plays with Canada and causes a lot of fear. And yeah, maybe you just tell us all the things that it's going on there and what it's causing, because our manufacturing sector obviously at great risk from this.
Absolutely. And I talk to members of the Manufacturing Safety Alliance, quite often. And, one of the prevailing emotions that I hear when I ask people, like, how are you doing? How are you doing? How's your team doing? It's obviously the uncertainty, but that uncertainty is causing a great deal of fear, a great deal of anxiety. I was talking to one individual the other day and I just said, how is this for you? And she said, I wake up at 2:00 in the morning and I can't sleep because my mind is racing. I'm so anxious about what's coming in. We don't even know what to expect because it keeps changing.
Yeah, because we've just gone through like PTSD a little bit too with COVID, right? With your business is shut down, you can open, you can't open like this, you can't do this. And then you just think you're coming out of it, you start to feel a little bit better. And here you go again. Now we're getting slapped around and so many industries across Canada being subjected to this, and so many people, they're going to lose their jobs, lose their business, all kinds of things.
Yeah. It's really having a devastating effect on people's well-being. I know when you consider, yes, it's political, but it's impacting us in a very, very personal way. People have mortgages and rent to pay. People have children to raise and families to look after. We have obligations. And when we're kind of in this situation where, again, it's tariffs on, tariffs off, but it's coming and it's not coming. We can't plan. We don't know, how this is going to impact us on a very personal level. So yeah, it's just really disrupting so many people in their lives right now.
Yeah, and I really make it that comparison to COVID because it's kind of the same thing. A lot of businesses didn't have, or people didn't have a lot of control over what was going on because it was an outside influence. And same with this. And I almost think maybe sometimes these politicians should dial back the rhetoric in the public and try to find their differences. And at least then we know this is what's going to happen or not going to happen, as opposed to maybe not. It's on, off, on, off, on, off. And it's just like a roller coaster ride. And we're seeing it now play out. I mean, there's the U.S. tariffs, and then just the other day we just got a bunch of Chinese tariffs, and Scott Moe's been on X there talking about, farmers are just up in arms as well because those are big markets for farmers, and so much anxiety across Canada.
Yeah, across Canada. And again, in the manufacturing sector, and manufacturing it encompasses so many different industries, from fruit production to, breweries to, sheet metal fabricators, you name it. If you produce something, you're in manufacturing, and that is one of the main targets of these tariffs. And British Columbia, I don't know how many people realize this, but manufacturing in British Columbia is a pretty large sector, employs a lot of people. And if these jobs disappear, there's not a lot of jobs to replace them with at the moment. So again, you can see why this is this is a frightening experience for so many people. And I think the on again, off again, it's in a way, it kind of has me thinking a little bit, it's the impact of psychological warfare, right? People, if it was just done, then you could move on, you could adapt, even as difficult as that is. But the fact that it's announced and then pulled back and announced and pulled back, it almost has the feel of gaslighting, which is making our foundations really shaky, and it's hard to predict and know what to do.
And I would say for businesses, when you go to invest capital, you kind of need certainty, and it's really tough to say I'm going to put this money into market, and then say, well, I mean, there is no market. I mean, it's that much of a big deal, right? And we even talk about agriculture. There's manufacturing there because you got to make the equipment that obviously that's in the fields and all that kind of stuff. So, yeah, I mean, it's almost every industry across Canada would be touched by this, right? These tariffs.
Well, yeah, I mean, and if you're not directly related to an industry where the tariffs are going to hit, there are the spin-off effects, because when there's unemployment, or when there's just organizations aren't investing, that ripples through the community. It creates fear in the community, uncertainty in the community. So, and there's no, as soon as you turn on the news, you're bombarded by this. So people really, again, it's just having such a profoundly deep impact on people's well-being. Yet people still have to get up in the morning. They still have to go in to work. They still have to look after their families. So we're carrying this immense cognitive load while having to survive and do everything we need to do normally. And that distraction it's really hard on, obviously that distraction is hard on us, but in manufacturing in particular, in other sectors like, construction, for example, the ability for one to be physically safe at work is also tied to one's ability to focus and not be distracted. So when we have this uncertainty, we have this fear, we have more employees who are going to a work site where safety needs to be the priority, but their mind is worried about things beyond their control, which is very human.
Yeah, it's very hard to think about the future when you're so stuck in the present moment and where you're getting bombarded. And that's why I say I think the politicians on both sides need to dial back the rhetoric that's in the public, because it's just a kind of like a teeter. What are you hearing from your members though? What are you hearing from the people in your industry and that, and how are you trying to kind of like, I don't know, help them kind of like deal with this?
Yeah, I mean, we're hearing a lot of different things. I mean, one of our members, just came out that, their operation is moving south of the line, right? It's moving to the U.S. Other organizations I talked to, they had a truck going to the border, truck got turned around, right? So, I mean, just hugely disruptive. So again, we're hearing about that anxiety, we're hearing about that worry. And what we try to do as an organization, I mean, Manufacturing Safety Alliances, we're a safety company. And in my particular role, as a director of leadership and psychological safety, my role is tied to, again, that psychological safety piece and how do we support people. And so, obviously we go out, we talk to folks, right now I'm doing a lot of, training on site for organizations and working with leaders about how do I support my team? How do I support my staff? What are the best things to do to make sure that people are okay from an emotional, psychological standpoint, so that they're also safe physically in the workplace. So our advisors are out there, as they are all the time, working and consulting with, our members. My services have picked up considerably over the last little while. So we're just really trying to support our folks, show them that we're there. And to the extent that we can, help them navigate this journey, because this is a really difficult one. And, we don't have the answers, because we don't know what's going to happen. But, one of the things that we do is, advocate, communicate. You might not have all the information, but the more you can communicate and be as transparent as possible, it gives people a sense of, okay, I don't like it, but I have a sense of what's coming. Because if we don't share what we know, we create a vacuum. And you know what fills that vacuum? Gossip. Yeah. And versions of reality that might not be accurate, but actually could instill more fear. So we talk about that piece. Again, how do we support an employee's psychological and emotional well-being? Are we referring them to community resources, for example? Are leaders, paying attention to, the emotional well-being of their employees, so that, not only they're psychologically safe, but they're physically safe at work. So as an organization, we're really, really busy out there touching base and, trying to provide as much support and certainty as we can in a very, very uncertain environment.
So how do people kind of like tap into your services? Likely you're very busy right now. So how do people kind of like reach out and see if they can get help for some of their staff and their, even themselves?
Yeah, I mean, obviously the easiest, if you're already a member of ours, you will probably have an advisor that you're connected with. Reach out to that person. If you're not connected with us, so we do work with manufacturing primarily, but not exclusively. If we have other organizations that are seeking support, for example, I'm, been working with a number of immigrant services societies lately, and, we've seen the cutbacks there. So go to our website, Manufacturing Safety Alliance of British Columbia. Check out our services. You can reach out directly to us, and we will respond in a very prompt and timely fashion to see if there's something that we can do to support you.
Yeah, I mean, this is like almost like a relationship, right? Because your job is a relationship. Almost everything in life is about relationships, and this is like like when you're in a bad relationship and you're going to break up every day. It's like going through a divorce. Now we're back together. No, we're getting divorced. No, we're getting back together. And plus it has all that financial impact. And I think that's the toughest thing for people, right? Especially coming out of what we just came out of, since 2019, there was a couple years of, business uncertainty, really tough to invest in the market when you didn't know what was going on. And now all of a sudden, it seems to be getting worse again, or even in some cases, even worse than that was, right?
At least, it's hard to make direct comparisons, but at least with that, it wasn't, there was a lot of rapid decision making, but it wasn't to the point where a decision was changed within 24 hours and then changed back again. And I think it's also different somehow when there's a human being on the other end making these decisions, right? There's a country that has for decades and decades been a reliable ally. We signed a trade agreement by the same guy who is now trashing it. So I think there's a personal nature to this as well that I think that is having a significant impact on people.
I think the threat of our sovereignty too is a big part of it too, and I think that's that is a tough part as well. And I think that because a lot of Canadians, like you just said, we've stood shoulder to shoulder with the Americans in many a different war and different crises in time, and all of a sudden it seems like we're the jilted girlfriend.
Well, it certainly can lead one to feeling that way. I think there's and it's not unique to our sector. I think it's pervading, Canada as a whole. There's a lot of fear, a lot of anxiety, but there's also a lot of anger and I think resentment, that is being kind of stirred up by this. And all of this is hugely distracting. Depending if we're not managing how we're feeling with this, if we're, reacting and getting upset and getting stressed and taking it out on our family members, for example, that stress also will impact that. And so the stress can compound. So it's originally about the tariffs and the work, but now my anxiety and worries coming home with me, and now it's affecting the people I care about and love. And so it just if we're not careful, it can really erode our well-being in a significant way.
Is there any kind of management technique that you can recommend to somebody that's kind of going through it at really an extreme level right now?
Well, if a management technique from a manager's perspective, or just how to manage that anxiety.
How to manage that anxiety, even for yourself personally, so that you don't spread it into your spouse and your children and all that stuff too, right?
Yeah, I wish there was a really simple fix. Unfortunately, there isn't. So there are some things that we can do to mitigate the impact and, not make it worse. So, the first one is, and this is hard. I don't deny that this is difficult to do, but get sleep, right? Sleep is an incredibly crucial thing for our well-being. And if you notice that if you don't sleep, it has a negative impact on your mood. It also makes you unsafe at work. These little devices, be careful how much time you're spending looking at media, because you'll see a story in the morning. And if you're checking out your phone or watching the news, that same story will be repeated dozens of times. Even though it's the same story, our mind will just kind of start to snowball about, oh my goodness, look at all these things. Make sure that you're, doing anything that kind of reduces your stress in a healthy way. Is it exercise? Is it meditation? Is it hanging out with your pets? Is it going for a walk in nature? Making sure you spend those times to kind of give you a little bit of just space and distance from it. Communicate. So many people, they bottle this stuff up. But when you bottle up these emotions, they don't disappear. They're just waiting there, and they tend to come out in places where we don't want it to. Like we become more irritable with our kids, or we argue more with our spouse. If you're really struggling, if you're at work for an organization that has an employee and family assistance program, reach out, get some help, go to see a counselor if that helps. Don't bottle it all in. And I think one of the most important things is don't isolate yourself. The more we surround ourselves with people that we care about and that people that care about us, it doesn't make the tariffs go away, but it can certainly help us feel that we're not alone and that we have people that we care about and that care about us. Those things are really, really important. Are they a silver bullet? Absolutely not. but they do help if we practice and we do them deliberately.
Yeah, and I think the one big difference between, I guess, COVID and what's happening now is like in COVID, kind of like everybody was in it together. So you kind of had almost like that support group because everybody's kind of in the same soup
Mm-hmm.
pot. But now it seems more targeted. It's like this industry today, then another industry and another industry. And it's just like,
Yeah.
it's pretty tough. And sometimes people might feel more alone that way.
They can, and if you're in a situation where maybe you don't have those connections with people, then it becomes harder. But that's when I would say, reach out to a colleague, reach out to, if you're at work and you're not certain, and hopefully you have a decent relationship with your supervisor, just say, look, I'm struggling right now. That's an important thing to do, because the other thing, I don't know many mind readers, and if we don't share how we're feeling, it might be hard for other people to really know and support us.
Yeah, for sure. Is there anything else you want to share other than the website address today that for people that are going through a lot of this right now that need some help?
Yeah, if you're really struggling, and you're feeling like you're in crisis because of this, one of the things I would recommend is, well, first of all, if you have a family doctor, maybe make an appointment to see that doctor, just to say, I'm not sleeping, or I'm having a lot of anxiety. Reach out to any kind of number of community organizations that offer free and low cost counseling. Most communities have something like that. And if you're really feeling like you're in crisis, if you think, oh, I just really need to talk to somebody, you can call the National 988 crisis line number and just have a voice, a compassionate, skilled, empathic person on the other end to listen to you, right? To kind of take some of the load off. So those are some things that are really, really helpful to do.
And imagine if you have a good benefits plan, you can also use, like you said earlier, use the benefits plan. There's psychologists and stuff like that are there to help you
Absolutely.
too, right? So
I mean, those services are great, but they're only great if you use them.
yeah,
And if you're an employer and you have those services, make sure that you really go out of your way to promote those services, to help people access them. Because again, if I'm an employee and I don't know that it exists, or I don't know how to reach it, it doesn't do any good.
yeah.
So we really need to advocate.
Especially for employees. I can remember when I was a young man working in the sawmill industry, where it's almost like we were threatened with layoffs all the time, right? So you're not sure you're
Yeah.
going to work, today if you're going to get a layoff notice or not get a layoff notice. There's always talk they're going to lay off a shift or do this and do that, and it was very, very stressful, and it made tough to, you think about buying a new car, or buying a house or something like that, and you're just like, well, I can't do any of that stuff right now because I'm not sure if I'll have my job next week, right? So
Put your life on hold, right?
yeah.
And we have folks that they want to put their kids through school. They're considering a major purchase. They want to buy a home, for example. They want to get a different place to live. All of those things feel like, can I do this? So we're in a really liminal stage here, in a sense of limbo.
Even as simple as like, do I get orthodontics for my child right now because that costs money, and maybe now is not the time. So yeah, so it's a time of like tough decisions, right? So it would be really good if we could find some certainty, and let's hope that we'll find some certainty in the next little while here. But
yeah, I absolutely agree. But until that point, I think we need to stick together as Canadians. We need to stick together, right? And remember that we're a great bunch.
Yeah, and I think that the politicians on both sides of the border should dial it back a bit and recognize that they're putting people, like they're the ping pong balls in this, and they're putting the people through this, and just try to find a way to find solutions, like work towards solutions as opposed to dialing up rhetoric, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, that will probably be very helpful for all of us.
Yeah, I imagine so. Well, I do thank you for your time today.
Yeah, my pleasure.
So Steve Conway with the Manufacturing Safety Alliance. Thank you for your time. And then you can find them on the website. Is there a website address, or just search that in Google?
Yeah, just search manufacturing. Oh. There we go.
Yeah, there you go. Manufacturing Safety Alliance of BC. And it's going to look like that when you find it on Google.
Yeah. Right.
There you go. Mental health and wellness at work. Yeah. An important thing, especially when you're working on dangerous equipment and stuff like that, to keep your head. I've worked in sawmills and I've worked in mine sites and stuff like that. I know that the stuff around you can be very dangerous if your head's not on right.
Yeah, a moment of distraction is all it takes.
Yeah. I got proof of that right here.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
That was a workplace accident a long time ago. So there you go.
Yeah, so
There you go. All right. We do thank you for your time. And we do
pleasure.
thank you for watching Kelowna Now.
We don't just report the news. We live here too. We're your neighbors, bringing you stories that matter to all of us. No government funding, no outside influence. Kelowna Now.